Hi, I'm Marissa and I'm doing a history report. The history report is on Westward expansion. Well, I might as well get to the point. So first of all, why did the Americans settle west? Golden land specifically made for raising cattle. The settlement of the West led to things like the California Gold Rush or the Oklahoma Land Rush. But this also forced Indians out of their homes. When that happened, Indian uprisings occurred, and railroads were invented. Oh yeah, and political parties or whatever. What were they called again? Okay, let's get started. Let's start with gold. Who doesn't love gold? The California Gold Rush encouraged a lot of people to travel west. Eventually, metals were found in Oklahoma, which was an Indian reservation at the time. It became U.S. soil. The Indians were so angry that they tried fighting back, but unfortunately, the Native Americans lost. I found a few documents from Little Bighorn, otherwise known as Custer's Last Stand. One of them was an eyewitness account from Red Horse, the Lakota chief. Red Horse and a couple other people went out to dig up turnips, but they were attacked. Him and the surrounding tribes planned an attack. The Sioux were so successful that they simply scared their enemies off. Then there's a bunch of other documents. There's a report from Santana. Santana talks about how the U.S. did a lot of shady stuff, like kill buffalo and cut down trees. Then there's Chief Joseph Surrender. In this one, Joseph talks about how it's cold, the children are missing, and then there is no food, so he surrenders. Then there's Chester A. Arthur's Indian policy reform. From what I can tell, he said the way to make Indians feel happy was to disintegrate nomadic life by forcing farming and education. Wait, what? That's an odd way of thinking. Now for the last document. The Homestead Act. This act said that farmers could be given a few acres to farm on. The Americans tried using this to make Indians farmers to prevent nomadic life. The government was pretty cruel to Native Americans. Now let's move on to the other reason people traveled west. Cattle. After gold mines started to disappear, people needed a reason to stay west, so they raised cattle and started dry farming. After cattle was introduced, new jobs opened up. One of the main jobs was being a cowboy. You may think of cowboys as lone rangers who listened to no one. That's partially true actually, but they did listen to people because they had jobs. Cowboys herded full-grown cattle from west to east. Cattle were raised in the west and sold in the east. Next, ranchers. Ranchers raised cattle. There's not much to say about that. Next, Native American struggles. They lived in these, teepees. Teepees are cone-shaped portable houses. They need to be portable since the Native Americans were nomadic. Like the Lakota, for example, they traveled in teepees. They used buffalo hides to build teepees as well as for food. But then railroads came as well as hunters. When the two big railroads were made, they needed to get rid of the buffaloes that were in the way. Hunters killed buffalo and sold their hides. Before all this, Americans forced Indians into Oklahoma. The U.S. gave them poor food, poor land, and pretty much poor everything. So, the Indian Uprising occurred. In a very famous battle, Alamo Church gave the saying, "Remember the Alamo!" But as I've already said, the Indians lost. But that doesn't mean they weren't important. After all, with the help of the Spanish, they introduced cattle, back to cattle. Well, more like farming in general, I guess. From 1866 to 1890, wheat prices dropped over 50%. As you can probably guess, farmers were pretty mad. Their rage directed one of the biggest political movements at the time. Populism, politics favorable to the average American. The populist movement eventually became so big that it became an official party. Populists supported William Jennings Bryan in the election of 1896. He was called the Great Commoner because of his appeal to the average American. He was also known for his fiery speeches. Well, I think it's time to end my history report. So in the end, we learned about cattle, Indians, railroads, and populism. Sounds a lot more interesting that way, doesn't it? See you later, I guess.